Welcome everyone. My name is Monique, your host. On today's episode, we are talking about acceptance, and my guest is going to be sharing what that looked like in her life and how that has impacted in her grief. This is a Saturday morning podcast. Enjoy. So would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little about you and who you'll be talking about today?
Yeah. My name is Amy. I am the oldest in my family of four, mom, dad, and younger sister. And I'll be talking about my mom today. I think you had me talk about my profession. So just graduated with my master's in marriage and family therapy. So currently job seeking. Hopefully I'll have a job by the time this comes out.
Yes.
But yeah.
Awesome. And then I know I asked you to bring a picture of your mom. Would you like to share that and say her name?
So this is my mom. Her name is Michelle. And this is me as probably maybe 2. And I just like this picture because she's feeding me, which is one of the ways that she loved me very well. So I thought this was a good representation.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And like you said, one of the things she loved to do was feed you. I'm going to share a little bit just like her personalities and things that,
Yeah, I think when I think about my mom, I think the first thing that comes up is like she's very quirky. Like kind of just like an awkward personality, but like really funny once you got to know her, like very quick-witted. She loved to cook. And so she worked at like an olive oil shop, so that's something that like we like to go do is go visit that shop. Do cooking classes. That's kind of what she did there. So she definitely was very good at cooking, even though she didn't go to school for it. But just always very creative. Like I grew up in a house where like we had like duck fat just in the fridge randomly, or just like these random things that like, I just would never know how to put things together, but there'd be so many random things in the fridge and the freezer. So
fun.
Yeah.
Would you say when you talk about your mom, is that probably one of the bigger things that you
for sure
miss speaking with her?
Yeah, definitely.
And you and your sister, how many years apart are you two?
We're 4 years apart, so 4 years. She's 4 years younger.
Oh, okay. And I want to kind of go back a little bit, and but before I do, I just want to say, again, thank you so much for being on today, and just kind of whatever you feel comfortable sharing, because I want to kind of go back to like kind of when you first found out, or anything you want to share just about your mom's health, like leading up to her passing, and just even how your body responded to the news, because I think a lot of people don't realize how much grief affects you physically. And so if you kind of want to share a little bit about that time.
I think it kind of makes sense to tell like just the story of what happened. So it was kind of like a sudden onset of illness. My mom, she had just started taking care of herself, got like a new diet, and was like finally starting to like put her health in a priority. And then this is 2018, and then we were going on a family trip, and she just started feeling really like tired and like dizzy, and I remember she was like in bed for like 2 days after that trip, and finally decided to go to the doctor, and then they sent her like to the emergency room, and basically they did a lot of tests and found out that like her white blood cells are really low. And so it was there that she got diagnosed with acute leukemia, or what's the word? AML, acute myeloid leukemia, I think is what it's called, AML. And so that began like a long process of receiving like chemotherapy, and eventually stem cell transplant, which I didn't really realize at the time has like a very low rate of like success. And so that was kind of the thing that ended up like taking her life is, when you go through a stem cell transplant, your body is like very immunocompromised. Like you, just any little illness can really take over. And so, there's a very rare, it's a very like common, virus that, yeah, it's just like found in like plants or that kind of thing. But that ended up, it doesn't usually affect like normal immune systems, but for her, like she's compromised. And so that's the thing that ended up taking her life at the end. And so, yeah, so that's kind of like the trajectory of it. But yeah, I was like in the hospital with her for months, in and out of chemo treatments and that kind of thing, and with her up until the very end. So yeah, a lot of hospital visits. And yeah, I know you asked like what was going on in my body. It was definitely like a roller coaster of emotions and bodily reactions. And yeah, I just remember like very early grief, like just sleeping a lot.
Yeah.
Like
that's
that,
real.
yeah, yeah. Like your body just like doesn't know what to do or process. And yeah, I remember like the first night just kind of like waking up in the middle of the night with my brain just being like, this is what happened last night. And yeah, just kind of like going through that shock, and my brain was trying to convince me like, no, this is real. But I think I ended up sleeping like 12 hours that first night. And I remember my dad being really concerned, like, is she okay?
Yeah.
Like, she's sleeping a really long time. And yeah, I think, yeah, I was just going through a lot mentally. So yeah, a lot of sleeping very early on.
Yeah. That's real. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that backstory, because I think that's important. A lot of people probably don't even know what that is or experience that, or people that have, like you're bringing more light to that. What would you say kind of like what your grief looks like, you know, during that time, and even if you want to fast forward to now, or even kind of what you even thought grief was, even before, like, was that normalized for you? Did you see that modeled growing up, like how to deal with grief, and then you experience it yourself?
Yeah. Well, that's a really good question. I think my first like real experience with grief was when I lost my grandma when I was in 5th grade. And that was my mom's mom. My mom was adopted, and so it was like her adopted mom. And my grandma and I were very close. Like I would go over to her house every day after school, and we were very close. And so she got lung cancer, and she passed when I was in 5th grade. And that was kind of like my first introduction to grief. And I think I remember feeling very similar, just like a lot of shock and like just a lot of emotions. And I remember like, yeah, it just wasn't really modeled for me of how to process that. Like I don't remember my mom even crying about her mom's death or like showing any kind of emotions around that. And so just not really like knowing what to do and how to place that, and being like a very emotional and sensitive child. Like I think I just didn't really know what to do with grief. And so it was very like a foreign concept to me. And then your second question.
And then now, just like how was that for you, experiencing then and then where you're at today? Because, you know, that was in 2018 and we're in 2024 now. Just what does grief feel and look like for you? Yeah.
It's been a long, very slow process. I think at first, like, I definitely resonate with, like, the just, like, shock and denial. Like, yeah, just that image of me, like, waking up in the middle of the night and, like, is this still real? Like, did this really happen? Like, I think I definitely went through shock for a long time. Yeah, just trying to grapple with it. And I think, I mean, a little bit about my story, too, is that, like, right after her passing, there's just a lot of like family conflict and things going on that made it really difficult to grieve, like, or to grieve. And so I feel like I kind of had to put like those emotions aside and kind of handle family things. And so, I think one thing that comes to mind when I think of like what helped me in that process was I had a really good therapist that I found like right after my mom passed. I think I started seeing her in June and my mom passed in February of 2019. And so it had been a couple of months. And I remember sitting down in her office and saying like, hey, I really want to process my grief. And I remember that something, some family conflict is going on And we ended up like talking about that, like the family conflict for like a year.
Oh, wow.
Before we really even started to like get onto the grief. And but like she really met me where I was. And the biggest takeaway from that was that I wanted to kind of like rush through, and like I wanted to be like, I want to grieve, I want to like be done grieving. Like that was kind of the thing that I wasn't saying explicitly, but that she kept picking up on, was like, it sounds like you just want to be there already. Like you want to like be done with this. And she's like, I don't think that that's gonna happen. And yeah, she really taught me how to be patient with myself in the process. So I think that's something that really kind of helped, along with like having a supportive community and people who went through, you know, similar things as me, like even just with family stuff. And you know, a lot of times grief can kind of just disrupt a whole family system. And so having people that really understand that really made that process easier. So I think that was kind of like the middle phase. Like it was like from shock to like, okay, now I want to like process through this, but I don't know how fast to go or slow to go with it. And then I think there was a time that shifted, and I would say it's probably recently, where I kind of just came to accept like how slow of a process grief is, and how like kind of how shocking it is. Like you can't really plan for it.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. I think I'll talk like more about that, like how shocking that was for me. But yeah, just kind of learning like grief is gonna hit you when it hits you. And so you don't really need to like force it, and there's no like end point that you need to get to. So yeah, I think I've really come to like accept that, and yeah, I have a lot of like peace with that now. But yeah, kind of getting lost in my train of thought.
Yeah, no, that's
a
so
big
good.
question, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
So for you, it's like you wanted to seek therapy.
Yeah.
That was beneficial for you.
Yeah.
You were in community, which was like people that going through the same thing, going through the motions. Because yeah, I think we can talk to people, right, that haven't gone through grief, but there is a difference. And so finding those people was like a huge thing for you and your support. And I think you kind of going into like my next question is kind of like what was something surprising to you that you like learned about grief. So I feel like you kind of
I kind of sprinkled it in there.
Yeah.
No, but I think for me the biggest kind of surprise was that I wasn't really expecting like certain holidays or events to be harder than they were. And I was not expecting for random days to be harder than I thought they would be. And so I remember like an example of, I was driving to like a friend's Christmas party. And I was on the 8 freeway, and I saw like the tree like by SeaWorld all lit up for Christmas. And I mean, I was going to a party like with friends, people that I loved, and I just like started crying because I was like, oh my gosh, I wish my mom was here for Christmas. And I was like overwhelmed and in tears, like on the freeway. And then 2 weeks later, Christmas happens, and I don't feel anything. And I was like, what is this? Like, you just can't predict it. And yeah, I think it's weird. Like, I really expected like those holidays to feel maybe more empty, or it just was weird. And I'll caveat that by saying like, part of my story is that my mom and I were not like emotionally close. Like, she was there for me in that she always provided food. She would like pick up my favorite snacks at the grocery store. Like, she was very thoughtful. But like in terms of emotions, she was a little stifled herself, like very reserved. And so we were not really very close emotionally. So I think like, yeah, thinking back to those special days, like her absence isn't really felt that much in times, and that's like really hard to say out loud. Yeah. And I think that was hard to even admit to myself like very early on, because I think people have a lot of expectations for you in grief. Like, oh, it must be so hard to not have your mom on Christmas. I'm like, actually, she was like there, but like not really like emotionally there. And so yeah, it was really hard to like kind of come to terms with that. Like I felt other people's expectations of like you should be grieving this way or those kinds of things. So I think the more that I've been able to kind of process that and say that out loud, like yeah, I didn't really feel that close to my mom. Like I think that's a different level of grief that's come in like recent years is like not grieving her loss, but grieving like what we didn't have. So I think that's just another layer. But yeah, definitely shocked by like just when it hits you because it's random.
I've been in grief groups and they've kind of identified that as like ambush of grief. Yeah. So in that moment when you're driving past you and see that was like a huge ambush of grief. Yeah, for sure. So, and yeah, I mean, it can be in the car, a song, you know, a picture, a smell, you know, I know a scent is like big for people. Yeah. So yeah, I can see how that happened for you in that moment. And just thank you also for sharing that about your mom and just because I know a lot of people can relate to that. And so I think that's really brave of you to say that because there's so many layers in grief in our relationships with our loved ones, you know. And so thanks for saying that. And I know for you, like you are a woman of faith, and so I'm just curious of how, you know, your relationship with God, how that's changed, how that's been hard, how it's been better, like going through grief, like how has your faith been challenged?
I think the biggest thing that came up as I'm like kind of thinking about how faith has changed, kind of the idea that that like in early grief my emotions were so unstable and unpredictable. And I think being someone who likes to put language to my emotions and kind of like I like to have like a cohesive narrative for things. Like a way to understand myself and my emotions, and when I don't, it's like very unsettling for me. And I think early grief was just very unsettling. Like I just didn't know how to feel. Like it's crazy to even kind of like look back and think about just like just to even have language to like know how to encourage other people in grief or to even like accept what other people are going through. Like I think that took it took years. And so I think just being in a space where I didn't have language for my feelings and then like seeing just kind of how that's like changed and like grown over time, I think it's just kind of showed me that like God's love for me is like consistent regardless of whether or not I have language for how I feel. And that's like such a weird concept, but like, I don't know how I equated those two things in my mind, but just like, he loves me and is holding me through those times even if I don't have language for it, and I think that gives you like more freedom to like feel what you feel, and just kind of like let it move through you, knowing that it'll like you'll kind of have language for it as you grow. And but I think just like his acceptance of me has helped me accept like my own emotions.
That's beautiful. I guess I just had this image of like this acceptance and like him holding you and carrying you, just as Amy and just walking alongside you in this journey. So just like your guys' intimacy in your faith with God. It's a beautiful picture. And speaking of your mom, like your family and your sister, how do you guys like have moments of remembrance of her? Is there like a special, you know, because you mentioned earlier that she loved to cook and you guys would cook together, like is there any things that you do in honor of your mom?
It's kind of, I know a lot of people have like special traditions or rituals or things like that. I feel like for us it's been kind of an interesting journey. Like I think we're still trying to figure it out. And so we've tried different things, different years, and usually what's consistent is like I'll be with my sister and we'll do some kind of something, and whether that's going out to like a restaurant that she really liked or making a meal together or some kind of a way to remember her. But there's been like little moments where, like for example, on my bachelorette trip, my sister did like crepes for us in the morning, because that was something my mom would always do, would be to make crepes for my friends in the morning. And And so it's just like little gestures like that that are just helpful, and I think a way to like connect other people and like bring them into like something that she enjoyed. So I think it usually revolves around food, or being in Coronado, which is where her olive oil shop was that she loves. So it's kind of, but I think we're still like trying to figure it out, and I think I'm less attached to the idea of like it has to be one specific ritual. Because it's just been hard, and like things shift, and I think just expectations too of like certain family members being there or recognizing the day, like that changes a lot over time as well. So
sure.
It's been a process.
And would you say, like, for anyone who's listening or watching, like if they don't have a ritual or they don't do something, like you would encourage them to just find something small,
find something that works. I think it's like go with what feels good. Because I think there's like kind of an expectation to, I've put a lot of pressure on myself in some years to like, okay, it's the anniversary day, like it has to look this certain way. And I think it's similar to holidays where you expect it to kind of hit you a certain way and it doesn't, and then it does on a different day. Like I think just kind of like an acceptance of like, okay, this is an acknowledgement of the day, but this is not like, it's kind of like Valentine's Day, where like Valentine's Day isn't just the one day to show your love to someone, you know, and if it is, like, that's not right. So I think it's like kind of similar, where like just putting all these expectations on like this day has to like, remember them perfectly is just like, that's too big of an expectation to hold. And I think it's also kind of an invitation to like, how are you inviting them into, or like how are you remembering them just in your regular life, so that those holidays don't have so much pressure.
Oh, I think that's huge statement. So I hope that's helpful for anyone listening and watching. What would you tell anyone that's kind of, you know, in the thick of grief right now, whether this is, you know, they just lost someone recently in the first year? I mean, I feel like even when I was thinking of this question, like, yes, there is like there's a difference when you're fresh in a year or two in it, but almost how I've met with other people and talked to them, I mean, it could be a decade since someone they loved and they haven't fully processed their grief. And so, what would be some key things that you would want to share?
I think what comes to mind is like taking care of your body. Like it sounds so practical, but like, I think there's just kind of this idea of like, we need to take care of ourselves in like order. Like there's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we talk about, where it's like your foundational needs are met, and then you can kind of build on that and get to these like higher states of processing. But like, really, like, how is your sleep? How are you eating? Are you like drinking too much caffeine? Are you like, do you have social support? Like just kind of these like basic things that we kind of take for granted. So important. So I'd probably say that. I mean, I would recommend finding a good therapist to kind of process through those things with. And they can really help you walk alongside you in like, you know, how you're taking care of yourself and that kind of thing, and what you really need. And if you're like me and you want to just get through it right away, to kind of hold you accountable and, you know, kind of help you to slow down. So I would say that, and like find good friends who like really understand you and who can, meet you where you're at. Because I think you mentioned earlier, like there's a difference between someone who's experienced grief and someone who hasn't, and like not to dismiss our friends who don't have experience with it, but I do think that there's something like intangible, like there's something that goes beyond words, where like you kind of just like, you just know. And so I think that's really important to have those kinds of people where whether you use words or you don't, like you have that connection and that bond with them to know that they understand and you understand them. So I think those would be the things I would say.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, even just as you're talking, about just the importance of therapy and surrounding yourself by friends and community. I mean, there's so many resources online for grief therapy, grief, classes, curriculum. There's a lot. So definitely, make the time to research that. And also too, like, I just wanted to say really quick, like, or ask you really quick, like, because we're talking about having friendships with people that have experienced grief, but not just your friends, but I'm thinking coworkers, relatives. Like, have you heard like some crazy comments to you
That's a good question.
About grief? Because I've heard some crazy comments as far as people, giving unsolicited advice.
They love that.
Or just an expectation, kind of like we were talking about earlier about having these rituals and like having family and stuff. But I guess just kind of want to, what you can say to people who are listening and watching, if you hear these certain kind of comments, kind of how they can respond, or not respond.
That's so good. Yeah. I think what comes to mind for me is that, so in early grief, I feel like I kind of protected myself from other people's opinions, and I don't know if it's the grace of God or like my own like get away. But I feel like in early grief, like I wouldn't say I isolated myself, I would say I protected myself, because I know that I can tend to like take on other people's expectations. And so, there was a lot of family who tried to, help in their good intentions, and, just, man, I'm like fighting myself if I want to like
Did you
share
get
certain things.
Be strong. You gotta be strong for your dad, or you gotta be strong for your sister.
Not really a lot of that. I think what it was, honestly, is, so when my mom passed, my dad moved on very quickly. And so it was a lot of like people telling me like, oh, aren't you so happy for him? And just like projecting their opinions onto me. And it would be even, this is so funny, but like my dentist would like, because he's a family friend, would like try and get involved. My massage therapist was a family friend, and I just stopped seeing them. And I think that was just out of protection of myself, that I'm like, okay, I know you're well intentioned and you so badly want me to be okay, and I can see that, but at the same time, like, I'm far too fragile to receive that from you. And so it was kind of just a kindness towards myself to say like, I'm gonna protect myself from that and not really listen to it. And so I think it was a lot of that.
So boundaries is what I'm hearing.
Boundaries. Yes, for sure. And I think like I kind of talked about like expectations of like people. I feel like it's a mixture of like my own protection and boundaries of myself, and like the grace of God that protected me from it. But I don't feel like I got a ton of that, but I have heard like lots of crazy things that people have said. I had the privilege in my practicum site to walk alongside people in grief, and led like a grief group of like these elderly folks, and they were like the sweetest people. And a lot of them had lost a spouse, and a lot of like the feedback that they would get was just so damaging. So I think people have a lot of like expectations of you, and they've definitely, like, I remember them telling me just really hurtful things that people would say, or just like move on, or I don't want to see you sad, or just those kinds of things. And I think it's just kind to let people talk about their loved one, and to just meet them where they're at. And because I think with grief specifically, I think it's an emotion that like, so our culture is not very good at processing it, but I do think that our bodies know how to process it. And there's someone, so David Kessler is like a really prominent like grief researcher, and he's incredible. You should like listen to his books and his like talks. Like, he's someone that really gives like very good language. But something gosh, I just lost my train of thought with that because I got excited about David Kessler. Yeah, I totally lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
What was I talking about right before that?
It'll come back.
What was I talking about right before that?
I think expectations.
I think it was expectations.
Yeah, and just the things that they like say to you and how you respond to it.
Yep, totally lost it.
That's okay.
Yep. It'll come back.
Yeah. But I think for you, or you were saying like just physically, how our body physically, like our culture is not
great. I remembered the thought.
Yes.
David Kessler talks about like every single one of our ancestors has gone through grief. Like it's like the most common human emotion. And so like we all are going to go through it. We are all going to die one day. And I think like he just kind of holds this idea that like we all instinctively kind of know how to move through it. And I'll caveat that by like, yeah, people definitely try to run from it. But I think like if you listen to your body and you listen to like what it needs, like I think it knows how to move through grief. And so that's kind of like connected to the idea of like accepting where you're at. That, yeah, like if you really lean into like, this is where I'm at, this is what I need, and like allow yourself to move through that, like you're going to get through. Like I think that we instinctively like know what we need and how to move through it. I think with grief. So
yeah. Oh, that's super helpful. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of what my hopes for this podcast would be, that it's shedding light that grief is a real thing, that we all are going to experience it one day, and for it to be more normalized in our culture to talk about. It's not taboo. Like we need to be educated. We need to help each other. We need to help those who haven't experienced grief yet, and how to be there for a friend, for a family member, because sometimes when we don't know, we can say something hurtful, or we're so afraid to say the wrong thing, we end up not doing anything, you know? And so I wouldn't want that for someone, you know? Yeah. Because even for me personally, I've had other family and friends like apologize to me like a year or two later, saying, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. It was only until I went through grief, you know? And I'm like, yeah, of course, you know? Right. But I think that also they can be, you know, a source of information, just guiding them, how to show up for people in the hardest times. So thanks for sharing that. What was the guy's name again?
David Kessler.
David Kessler. Sounds like an actor. Well, lastly, my last little question, since you've been going through grief and just how, you know, you've changed spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, like just something I like to ask my guests at the end. So my heart has a greater capacity to love others now because ... What would you say that? Like, how has your heart grown to love others now?
I think like I really like I feel like I keep coming back to this idea of like acceptance. I think for me, like accepting my emotions, like I fight my emotions constantly. Like I'm someone who, like, if I feel any kind of like sadness, grief, anger, whatever, I'm trying as hard as I can to make it go away. And I think like grief is one of those things that like you can't make it go away. And I think like over time, through like some of the things that I've talked about, like I feel like I've learned how to accept my emotions and like where I'm at, and like the second I go, okay, yes, I'm acknowledging I'm feeling this way, and that's okay. Like it's crazy how much your emotions just like move through you, and like they're so temporary. And so I think the more that I have come to understand that and to not be so afraid of them, I feel better myself, but I feel like I'm able to like meet other people with where they're at and not project my own idea of like what their grief should look like. Yeah, that's cool. Because I think we're all so different. Like there's as many ways to grieve as there are people in the world. And so I think just understanding like where someone is at, and being able to meet them in that, and even just dispel some of the like, you know, myths about grief or just those kinds of things, has been really helpful. So yeah, I guess I just like feel an expansion in like my ability to hold my emotions and to hold the emotions of other people, I would say.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest thing.
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
huge,
Yeah.
Amy. I mean, you guys don't know this, but before we started recording, I mean, Amy had a moment just,
Yeah.
showing the picture. I
Yeah.
think for me, I really have asked, all my guests to show a picture because it's just so powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about
Yeah.
our loved ones, but when we actually put like
Yeah.
a face to their
Yeah.
name, and you even just explaining that picture,
Yeah.
it's just, she was real,
Mhm.
and she was your mom, and you loved her and you miss her, and it's important to continue to talk about her life and remember her and honor her as a beautiful soul that she was. And now you're an MFT, like, willing to sit down with people and help people in their journey, whether it's grief or marriage or parenting, whatever life stuff. I think it's just such a beautiful thing that God's doing in your life, and how He's using you to love people and serve people and hear people. So
Thanks, Mom.
yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on the Saturday Morning Podcast and sharing your story. And yeah, that's it. We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.